What's up, everybody? One Fun Guy podcast live in the studio. I'm with my buddy Jim. We're going to be talking about vinyl records. He's just adjusting the camera. Um, Jim, do us a favor, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your collection, and we'll hop right in.
Yeah, my name's Jimmy Higgins. I live in Columbus, Ohio. Um, I started collecting vinyl 5 years ago, give or take. Sorry about that. My Beatles were playing in the background. And now my wife and I have accumulated a rather large collection. I think we're just shy of about 1,000 at this juncture.
Wow.
Um, but we're kind of all over the place with our vinyl. We've got my wife's into blues, so we have a little bit of blues. I'm into movie scores. I was actually a college professor in film for 20 years. So we have some movie scores. Our youngest, who's 13, is into it as well. So he has his little collection of Fallout Boy
Sure.
and AJR and a couple soundtracks that he likes, like oh gosh, Wedding Singer,
Okay.
things like that. So yeah, so our collection's kind of all over the place. But I played in bass guitar for many, many years, and our youngest plays cello,
Okay.
and just started playing bass guitar this year. So, but I played in bands since I was 18 years old. So music's always been kind of a part of my life, always been a part of my
Sure.
wife's life, and that's something we bond over and connect with.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask a pretty much a banger question right off the bat, not wait till the end. Do you have a Grail album that you would want to get, or do you have a Grail album currently in your collection?
Oh Lord, you're gonna make me do that right off the bat, aren't you?
I'll,
Okay, all right. Let me lean to the left to grab the Grail album that I do
I'll
have.
get mine too while we're doing it because I actually have mine in my collection. Actually, I have two of them, but let's see if I find this one here. Yeah. So
Hold on, I'm getting the other one too.
yeah.
Like you said, I have two. I have two as well. Where are we at? Okay, there it is. Oh, okay, all right. Yep, I got them both.
Nice.
Okay,
So all right, I'll let you do the honors.
you want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one that I ended up getting that was my Grail album is I'm a huge Slipknot fan,
Okay.
and it's funny. My wife and I joke that you introduced her to Pantera in college because you guys know each other from college, and she never thought she'd get into Slipknot, and come to realize she loves Stone Sour, but didn't put two and two together that it was
Correct.
Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
But one of our first kind of festivals we went to, we saw Slipknot, and I love Slipknot. I remember buying that album in 1998, I believe it was,
Sure.
on CD. I was in the military at the time, and I just couldn't put it down. So for me, one of their Holy Grail albums was "The Look Outside Your Window." This project that did exist, didn't exist. Was it real? Was it not real?
Hmm.
And it came out on Record Store Day this past year. And so one of my holy grails was always the "Look Outside Your Window" album
Okay.
from Slipknot, which it's just four of them. It's Corey, it's Clown, I think it's Sid, and um, it might be it's one of the guitarists. I can't remember off the top of my
Mick,
head.
probably.
It might be Mick. But what I love about it, the album. I know they just released it too. I think a couple weeks ago on black vinyl. But look at that.
Yeah.
It's just a fun variant, and it's wild because it sounds to me like when I listen to it, it doesn't sound like Slipknot at all. Yeah, you can hear Corey's voice, but outside of that, um, it was Sid, Corey, Jim. It was Jim Root and
Yeah.
Clown. Um,
Okay.
but when you listen to it, it's more akin to, be quite frank, Radiohead.
Okay.
So yeah, that was just one of those holy grail albums that did it exist, did it not exist, and this is one of those that I think I had let you know that I was in line at 4 a.m. On Record Store Day this
Yeah, I
past year.
missed it. So I actually bought so I got the Fear Factory Digimortal and I got
Oh,
the
nice.
Sisters of Mercy, but those were all after the fact. So I paid a little bit more for them, but I had to work, so I couldn't get in line. There was nothing I could do.
Yep.
So by the time I went, and the only one that I wanted, obviously, is the Spirit Box
Hmm.
one, and then the Sleep Token one. And the Sleep Token one was the caramel one with the liquid in
Yep.
it, and that's gone. And now you can't even find them on eBay for less than $500. So it's kind of
Yeah, this one, I mean, within days, I think was $300 on eBay.
yeah. So
And our line at Spoonful Records is where I went. We've got a couple recent decent record shops here in Columbus. So if you're in Columbus, Spoonful and Used Kids is a decent one as well. Those are the two that I frequent, but Spoonful's the one I go to the most. But the line was down the block at 4 a.m.
sure,
and it was
yeah.
just like, wow.
Right. And you got to do what you got to do. So our record stores, the two that I normally go to, what they do is you have to get there before midnight the night before on Friday, and they hand out tickets. And you could be the thousandth person in line and get number one, or you could be the person front of the door and you get number 700. So it's kind of a random mix, but a lot of people like doing it that way. At least they feel like they kind of get their spot. But I think what they do is the first 20 people are the first 20 tickets, and then after the 20th, it could jump from 100 to whatever. So if you're 50th in line, you could get number 21 and be the first 25 people in the store. So
Yep.
it's kind of unique that they do it that way instead of having everyone line up at you know tenting out or getting up early in the morning. So
That's Yeah,
yeah,
and that's what it was.
you
But
know,
it's kind of funny because, like, to me, that's like the old Ticketmaster way, right? Like, I
right.
remember waiting
Yeah.
in line. You
Yeah.
got there, you were the first one in, the first one out, and
So
then I
yeah,
always remember it was one of the Pink Floyd tours, and then that's when they shifted it where you got there, and at like 2 a.m. they pulled numbers out of a hat.
that
So like you could have been waiting all day and been first in line and end up, like you said, with number 700. But
right. And that's how it was, right? Because like I don't know about how it was where you were, but in Illinois, where I am, it was Carson Peary Scott was the store you went to, and everyone would
Mhm.
line up outside of Carson. And when they opened the door at 9 in the morning, everyone would run right to the thing. And if you were the first in line, and that was before they had like the online brokers and stuff, so you
Mhm.
actually went and you bought the ticket, and that's kind of how you got into kind of concerts back in the day. But I'll do one of my Grail albums. There's actually two, but they're the same band. It's Sentenced. So
Okay.
this is the live album, but I actually one of my friends who I met through podcasting, she actually found the Sentenced funeral album, which is out of print. They've never redone them. The band broke up. They went to Poison Black as their new band. The singer, the guitarist, and the drummer are on Poison Black. But Sentence never reissued any of their albums, not like In Flames or any of the other bands that I like. So to try to find the funeral album, she actually found it from a guy in Germany and ended up
Mm.
working out a deal where she paid the 46 or $47 for the shipping and import fees. So she got it for me and it was awesome. But that was so the both Sentenced albums they're obviously my grails and I own them both. Another cool one that I have is from being from Ohio, the band from Cleveland, but it's Mushroomhead. And I'll
Mhm,
tell
mhm,
you,
mhm.
so a quick story about that. My buddy Chris, we were in college, and his band or his friends were in a band called 5.0. He went to Joliet Catholic, and they said they're opening for a band called Mushroomhead. Do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know what that is. He goes, well, they're a kind of a hardcore punk metal band. He goes, but they kind of have this unique sound to them. He goes, I don't know about Mushroomhead. They're just opening for him. So me and two of my other buddies went. We go to Milwaukee. We go to the rave. 5.0 was awesome. His band, we got to meet him afterwards. There was his friend was actually the girl guitarist in the band who I think was dating the singer at the time. But so we got to meet them, we got to hang out, and Mushroomhead got on stage, and here's these 8 dudes in military fatigues with these kind of the mask is right behind me, so I don't know.
Mhm,
It's
mhm,
so
mhm.
let me do it this way. So point the finger the other way, but this right here is the Mushroomhead mask that I got when I met them in 2003. But we saw them in 2000 or 2001 when they had just kind of went from the cloth mask to the actual latex mask. And it was awesome. So I have the original Mushroomhead vinyl also on. So those are kind of
Oh,
my Grail albums that I have and that I was able to get. And I can't even get the thing signed now because there only one person is left
yep.
in the new iteration of the new Mushroomhead, which is the drummer Skinny. All the other guys are in the X Faces now. doing their thing. So I can't even have them sign it because no one's original on
Yep.
the album. So it's kind of, you know, defeats the purpose. But those are my three. So as we hop back in,
Oh,
obviously you
hold
said
on.
yeah,
I got one more.
yeah, do your thing.
I got one more. Beck's Midnight Vultures.
Okay,
Can't find this anywhere.
that's awesome.
Can't find it anywhere. And that's, again, my taste is a little bit eclectic. I do love Mushroomhead, but I
Yeah,
also love Mason Beck. But this is
sure.
also another one, when you say Holy Grail albums, like when I
Yeah,
saw this, I was like, no, no, no,
right.
come on with me.
Nice. So obviously, when we talk about vinyl collecting, you said music's been a big part of your life. You've been
Mhm.
collecting for about 5 years. How did you start? Did you have like somebody give you one? Did you buy one? Did you have a turntable? Did you have like what started the process?
So I grew up in a household with my dad where he had a vinyl collection that was ridiculous. He had original pressings of every Beatles album, Hendrix album, Joplin, and most of them were signed.
Okay,
He played in a rock band in New York in the '60s and '70s. He was a drummer, so he got to open for a lot of the bands at venues and things like that, and got to meet them. So growing up, like my dad had vinyl in the house, so I always had an affinity for it. But what it was when I was teaching, I actually had some students as vinyl started to make its kind of comeback, that were talking about it. And I'm like, oh
okay,
God, I haven't seen a record player or had a record player in forever. And they're like, oh, and one of them brought in the vinyl of Stranger Things, well, the score.
hmm,
And I was like, oh, I just sat there and listened to it. They brought in a little record player for me. I'm like, oh, I love this. So then I went out and I bought myself, it was a little Victrola with the speakers in it, $50 record player. And the first one I got was a picture disc of E.T. because that,
okay,
as a kid, was the first vinyl I ever got was E.T.'s score.
sure,
So I ended up getting that, and then that kind of started the floodgates a little bit. I kind of lagged a little bit because I was like, man, what do I want to get? And then now it's just gotten to the point of like, oh God, wherever we go on a trip, we go to a record store, like
yeah,
wherever, like we find one, sometimes three in the city, and we go to
right,
everyone
yeah,
and
for
we
sure.
hunt and we search.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it was with me. I'm way to the game. So in high school and college, I had a huge CD collection, and I've explained this before, but like me and my buddies on Friday nights, we had a really cool record store called Rolling Stones Record. It's on Harlem or Irving Park, just a little bit west of Harlem, and it was the thing to do on Friday night. Your parents would drop you off at the mall. You'd walk around the mall, and then when the mall would close, you'd go to Rolling Stones because Rolling Stones was open till 1 in the morning, I think, or midnight. So you kind of had that, and then your parents would come and get you from the Pizza Hut afterwards because Pizza Hut was open till 2 in the morning. And then
Mhm.
after Rolling Stones, you go to Pizza Hut, you hang out. Parents come get you from Pizza Hut, and you go home, right? So that was kind of it. But when I moved, I decided like a dummy. I said, I'm not going to bring my CDs. I'm just going to
Yep.
sell them. I have no, reason to have them. I haven't listened to them. Everything's digital now. So I made a horrible mistake. I kept probably about 30 or 40 CDs that actually meant something to me. And I went to the pawn shop and I sold them all. And I had probably 10, I would say probably 10,000 give or take dollars invested in a collection I ended up getting about
Mhm.
$500 for when it was all said and done. Because
Yep.
obviously they basically said, we're going to give you a quarter for all these. We'll give you $1 for all these. We'll give you $2 for all these. And these ones aren't worth anything. But since you have them, we'll just take them off your thing.
Yep.
So it averaged out to about $500. I said, all right, I'll take the cash, and that was it. So move in, start to realize, okay, I have my phone and I have my, but it's not the same. And so I'm like, I don't want to rebuy all the CDs all over again because that would be pointless. I already had them all. So what I decided to do, and my theory was that I was going to buy my 25 favorite CDs that I had on vinyl from Pantera, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue to wherever it was. And I said, I'll buy those. And once I hit 25 or 30, then I'll stop. Right. And so that probably lasted about 3 weeks. And then I just started going on eBay, and all these albums were like $3, $4. Buy it now for $6. So I just kind of went crazy and I was like, all right, I'll spend
Mhm.
$50 and I'll buy all these. And now I'm nowhere near yours. I probably got about 200 in my collection altogether right now, which obviously is way more than the 25 I said I was going to get. But now I've gotten I did the same thing you did. I got the Vitrola one that was like $50 on Amazon, and
Mhm.
I've clearly upgraded to the Audio Technica. So obviously, like my player's better, my system's better, but like I caught the bug way late. And now I'm
Yep.
trying to catch up. So actually, this morning I went to a record show in Countryside, which is like a big one around us, and it's kind of like a buy, sell, and trade. If you just go whatever you have, but now it's becoming like to the point where it's filled with people. Like when I first went, there
Mhm.
might have been like 150 people there. Today there was easily over 300. Like it was hard to find
Mhm.
stuff. People were kind of walking around, going all over the place. So it's been a resurgence, like you said, of
Yep.
music. Um, Let me ask, when you started getting, your dad was into music, you were into yours. Did you obtain his collection, or did you kind of start your own, or did you kind of ask him for some, or how did that transition into what you have
So
now?
oddly enough, we he lost his collection in 1993.
Okay.
We had a no-name storm. I was living in Florida at the time come through, and our house flooded. The canals overran with water. I mean, people had gators in their homes.
Right.
Like it was horrible. Like you think of the movie Crawl. That's basically what happened
Yeah.
overnight,
Okay.
and he lost his entire collection. Oddly enough, it kind of comes full circle, I guess, kind of in a weird way. He never got back into vinyl. I got into it. I gifted him my little Victorola with some small speakers. Because I had started,
Mhm.
with that, and then I added a
Right.
little bit of, desktop speakers to it before I got to where I'm at now,
Sure.
and I'm happy where I'm at now. But of course, I could go further, right? Like,
Right.
I'm no
Exactly.
audiophile by any stretch of the imagination, but it
Yeah.
works for me. What I have works for me. So like I gifted him that, and then I gifted him. I had Eric Bourdain and the Animals, which I know was one of the albums he had.
Mhm.
I had two of it. I had it like an old like greatest hits album, and then I had a newer one that I got at Target for like $5 on clearance. So I gave him the old one, and then each year I've bought him like a different record. So I've been kind of helping him. I
Sure.
bought him a Zeppelin, I bought him a Beatles, I bought him a Hendrix, and now I
Right.
bought him a Doors. So now he's kind of back into it, but it's kind of funny how that went, right? Because I, like you, had way too many CDs. And then I bought that stupid iPod,
Yeah.
and I was able to put, every CD I had, my friends and I was the Napster generation. Like we all
Mhm.
shared our music. We all had a central hub server that we shared our music on. Like, so I had so much music. And then, I sold all my CDs,
Yeah.
thousands upon thousands. I mean, I had bookshelves of
Yeah.
CDs that I got rid of. And for me, once I dropped that needle on that ET album, and I heard that opening, even through those small Victrola, tiny little speakers in that thing, I was like, you know what? There's just something about this that is different. Because yeah, I've got this on my iPod, I've got it on my phone. I can listen to the score anytime, but there's something about when that needle drops and that little hiss and pop, and you hear John Williams' score come in, like that sold me.
Yeah.
Like, and with anything now, like that's where I'm at with it. Is like there's a certain character to the music, a certain timbre to the music that comes off of vinyl that lossless sound. Great. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like I don't like it. I like the sound I get from my Sony receiver into my speakers. It's like there's a certain warmth, there's a certain range that I don't feel I get from you know, my
Sure.
AirPods.
Yeah. Now, we talked about this on one of my podcasts back in the day, and one of my buddies made a really good point. He said, buying vinyl kind of forces you to listen to the album because you don't normally skip, right? You have to listen to the music, and
Mhm.
it forces you to pay attention to what's going on and keeps you in the presence. When you drop the needle, do you find yourself listening to the album, or do you kind of skip and lift and pull? Because I never really do. I don't skip around, to be honest with you. I kind of just put it
Yeah.
on and let it go.
Yeah, I don't skip, at all.
Okay.
No, no, and my um my second record player was an Angel Horn, and it died on me like within a couple months because that's how much I listened to the
Mhm.
records. Like I primarily work from home, so I get up in the morning. I like to put on a movie score, kind of start my day as I work
Sure.
with a movie score. Then I move into like, some Billy Joel or Elton John, Neil
Mhm.
Diamond, some good 60s, 70s, early 80s area. And then I go into my music kind of at the end,
Right.
right? Like to
Yeah.
help me get through the rest of the day. But like, it's one of those things like I ended up getting a record. It's called Record, Rekkord. They're handmade in Germany. Love it. Love the
Okay.
record player through and through. But like for me, it's yeah, like I don't skip. I put that needle down and that entire album plays. And it sounds silly because of working from home.
Right.
It forces me to get up.
Yeah.
It forces me to take a break from my day, take a break from my walk over, flip the record, put it down, start the other side. But yeah, I don't ever skip. I don't
Okay.
ever skip forward to a track, even if it's a song like I really want to hear this song today. It starts on track one, and guess what? If it's track seven, it's gonna get there eventually.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And that's
Mhm.
kind of our statement was that, it really forces you to pay attention to music. Not that like, when I had CDs back in the day, I would listen to the album front to back, right? Because you would just put it on and you would just kind of let it go. And then 48 minutes later it would just stop, right? But the unique thing was is that if you did like a particular song, you just skip over to the next one, right? That was the unique thing
Yep.
about CDs and even cassettes fast forwarding, but like with records, it's really hard because when you lift the needle up, you have to kind of find that sweet spot to put it down. So,
Mhm.
when you do, most of the time when I talk to anybody about vinyl records, that's the one thing they say is that like it really forces you to listen to the album, right? And it kind of gets you into the experience of, listening to, 22 minutes on one side, flipping it over, and then another, 22 or 23 minutes on the next side to get to your 45-minute mark on an album where, CDs were just kind of one and done.
Yeah. Well, and even with CDs, one of the things I remember very well, like I would buy a CD and I would probably listen to it from beginning to end the first time I got it. And then after that, I knew which songs I liked.
Mhm.
I would skip to those and probably wouldn't listen to it again. But with vinyl now, like it doesn't matter. Like if I just like, you know, Sex Laws, well, guess what? That's the first track, but then I'm listening to the other eight
Right.
every time. Like
Yeah.
I'm not just skipping around. I'm not putting a single track on repeat, which I would do with CDs as well.
Sure.
I think vinyl, and it's interesting because I don't know if you've seen it. There are almost clubs opening up that are vinyl clubs
Mhm.
where you can go in, you can get a beer, you sit in a comfy seat, and they play records from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And the acoustic setup, of course, is ridiculous, right? It'll blow your mind. But yeah, that's the point of the club. It's like you go in, you sit there, and you listen to the vinyl. But for me, yeah, that's what I do. It's from
Yeah.
beginning to end every time.
And so, you talked about Record Store Day and the kind of ambiance that goes with that and all the
Mhm.
releases that are coming out. What's it like your experience going to a record store now as an adult, like understanding the leisureness of it versus as a kid running into grabbing what you wanted, buying it and running out. Right? So like that's the unique thing to me now where like if I go to a record store, I'm there for an hour. Right. I'm looking through everything. I'm trying to find, but when I remember being a a younger adult at, 18, 19,
Yeah,
20 years old, running into a store and buying an album, paying your 15 bucks and then running out, right? You didn't
yeah.
get the experience of it. What's it like for you when you go to a record store? Like,
The best way I can describe that is like I'm running into the record store for 5 minutes. That's the best 3 hours of my life.
right.
Because that's what it is I go in and I'm like, all right, I want this album. This is the one thing I want. First of all, I don't know if it's actually going to be there. Right? I could even call in and be like, hey, do you have this? And they'll say, yeah. But by the time I
Mhm.
drive to the store, somebody could buy it
Right.
and then it's gone. So like I can go in, I hit my section, which is, the metal section, then I go to rock, then I go to some classics. Sometimes I'll slide over to scores. I peruse, I browse, I search,
Mhm.
I hunt. So it's different than, like you said, in the CD days of running into Sam Goody. I know exactly I wanted, I wanted helmet today, and I run and I grab helmet and I walk out. Now I go to H in heavy metal and I look and I see them. Man, they don't have any helmet. Well, let me keep going through. What else do they have here? What else? What's come out? What's new? What has somebody sold to the store?
Hmm.
You know, because that's an everyday thing for them. It's like
Sure.
every
Right.
day. And for me, as much as I love getting new releases, I urge any of my friends, like when you go to a record store, buy used. If you
Hmm.
can buy used, because that's how the record store makes their money. They don't make their money from the new albums. They don't make their money from record store day releases. They make their money from the fact that they bought Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska from me for $10 and then they sold it for 15.
Yep.
That's where they make their money. But yeah,
Yep.
like for me, like going to a record store, it's not an in and out ever type of thing. Even
Right.
though they may call me and be like, "Hey, we got in your special order."
Yeah.
It
Right.
it never ends up being that. It ends up being like, "All right." And I walk in, I'm like, "Hey," they're like, "Hey, we got your," I'm like, "I know, I'll be over in a minute." And then like 3 albums
Yeah.
later, I'm like, "Oh, and my special order," It's
Right. I always like to ask because it's the same thing with me, right? When like I go to a store, I'm the same way, right? Like I check out all the rock, the metal, the classics, the kind of the thing, and then they
yeah.
always usually have like a $2 bin or a $3 bin or a $5 bin, or buy three for 10 or whatever it is. So I always like that's where I spend most of my time is going through those, trying to find that one album that sticks out that you're like, oh, I don't have this, but for $3, I'll take a chance on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a unique experience that way. Now, you mentioned earlier about traveling and going to other record stores and other places where you go. I feel the same way, right? When I go up to a concert in Milwaukee, I'll leave 2 hours earlier and I'll go to like a record store that's around there just to see what they have.
Hmm.
When you go to other states and you go to other things, how do they accept you when they come in? Because I have a really cool story about a place I went to in Upper Wisconsin that was really unique to me. How is their reception of that?
So it's been interesting, because some are clearly price gouging. Like I'm
Mhm.
not gonna lie, like if somebody asked me their specific opinion about certain record stores, I would be like, no, don't go there. And then there are some, we're lucky here. If you're ever in Ohio, like I said, go to Spoonful. It is run by a great group of people. They're very friendly. It's a very kind of it's almost like a family environment.
Mhm.
That they talk to you, they know your likes.
Sure.
It's just one of those things. Like it's like Cheers, right? Like,
Yeah.
but like the closest experience we've gotten to that was in New Orleans. We went to Euclid Records in New Orleans, and the guys there were just open and honest and nice. And they're like, "Where are you guys from?" We said, "We're from Ohio." They just chatted our ears off for a good 20, 30 minutes. They were, and that's what I want to see when I go in a record store. Like, I don't want to see 20 million records and your people have no personality.
Mhm.
Like, everyone's coming in there for an experience. We're not coming in there like the CD days and just grab and go. We're coming in there to find and search and hunt. So for me, that's what I want. Like, I hate to say it, a record store should be mommy and poppy.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Because my experience is I met a buddy of mine out in Madison, Wisconsin, and Madison is very eclectic. It's a college town, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a ton of record stores, there's a ton of music stores and stuff like that. So at the very last day, we or the very last like hour of the day, it was probably about 6:30 at night. Most record stores will close at 6:30 or 7, right? So we walk in and it's like 6:28. And that you could tell the guy like didn't want to like deal with us because he was ready to go home, obviously, right? And we walk in, and the first album he has on the thing is the Gorilla Biscuits, the original press. And I was like, "Is that for sale?" He goes, "Nope." He's like, "You'll never see another one of those again." And I said, "I know." I go, "Would you ever put a price tag on it?" And he's like, "Probably not." So it was very unique because I felt like I had to buy something from him just because he stayed to keep the store open for us to talk about his hardcore and punk collection that he had. And this guy was like a true and true, like old school metalhead, right? Like a whole old school hardcore guy. And he knew exactly what he had. But it was so interesting to like talk to him, and he could have just told us, guys, you got 2 minutes. I'm closing the door at 6:30. He stayed till about 7:15 to talk to us about all his rare and like kind of um really hard to find presses that he had. He had an old Misfits one that was like it was Earth AD, but it was like the first California press before it hit the thing. It was literally in a cardboard box with a little Misfit head on it. And I go, "What's that?" He goes, "You'll never see another one of those." He goes, "That was the first pressing of the first vinyl that they ever did." And I was like, "How did you get it?" And he was like, "I was in a studio in New York." He goes, "My buddy was playing there." He goes, "We happened to see it." The guy said, "I had about 100 of these. They were originally pressed for not for retail sale. They were just there." And he grabbed one. And he had it. That thing's probably worth thousands of dollars. And it's sitting on a little thing. Same with the Gorilla Biscuits. He had a couple other like older hardcore albums. But for him to take the time to explain to us like how he got these, and like it was
Mhm.
just a cool feeling because I know the guy wanted to get home, right? He had been there probably since 10 in the morning. It was 6:30 at night. We were walking in literally at like 6:28. Like I said, it was like right before the thing. And he just kind of took the extra 35 minutes to let us shop around, and I bought a few albums from him just to make it worth his time to be there. But that was one of my coolest experiences, like seeing all these rare old school hardcore punk albums that you can't even find. And here he had them on a thing. He was a old school. I believe his friend was a DJ in New York, and I think that's how he was able to get to all these artists that were pressing out first copies of things that they were just basically they were one-offs
Yeah,
just to see. So it
and
was,
but what I mean, what you describe is community, right? Like, I
yeah,
mean, there's something about the vinyl community that really is community.
sure.
People share stories, they talk. I talked to the people I was in the record store line, and we talked about what are you here for? What are you not here for? What's your collection look like? What do you like? I mean, it's there's a certain community to it, and that's something that I don't feel that CDs had. I know digital doesn't have,
Right.
other than sharing your Spotify playlist.
Sure. Yeah.
But even then, it's like, like I'm super excited about, like, I love Mike Patton,
Mhm.
and I've seen Mr. Bungle, as you can see behind me there. I've got my
Yeah.
Mr. Bungle up, seen them a bunch of times. Tomahawk's touring. I've got some Tomahawk albums, and I'm part of an app called Dead Format, which they have like a monthly calendar of
Mhm.
challenges, where you post a record that's blue, you post a record that's red. I think today is post one that looks like candy,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
it's just random things like that. But
Right.
you post on that, and then all of a sudden people talk underneath your post about like, oh God, I love this album. I would love to see them, or this
Sure.
album's great. And there's just a different community to it.
Yeah. Speaking of Mr. Bungle, Faith and War's coming back on tour. I don't know if you heard that. It's been all over the press
Yes,
lately.
I did.
So
Yes, I
yeah. So I missed
did.
them in 2016, which was one of the biggest regrets, was not going to Riot Fest when they were there.
So
So I'm gonna go see them.
I'm hoping, and I'm assuming they're just going to do festivals. Like, I'm
That's
assuming
I
that.
think what they're gonna do. Yeah.
I'm hoping they're coming here to Sonic Temple.
Yeah.
Like, I really am, because like, I've got King for a Day. I've got, when I was in New Orleans, at Euclid, I found two of their first two albums.
Mhm.
Um, I've got Angel Dust. I've got
Right.
most of their discography. I'm missing like three, I think. I think I'm
Okay.
missing Album of the Year. Um, oh gosh, what are the other two that I'm missing? Anyway, but like, I'm hoping they come here or come to a place that I can go see them, because I don't want to miss that. Like,
Yeah.
they're one of my, you talk about Holy Grail albums. They're one of my Holy Grail seeing live.
Yeah.
The other one was Queens of the Stone Age, which we saw a couple years ago, and
Sure.
we're seeing obviously in Chicago with the Foo Fighters.
Right.
But they're one of those bands that, like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna miss. I'm not gonna miss them.
Yeah, it's tough because I've seen Mike Patton with Tomahawk and with Phantomas, but
Mhm.
I've never seen him with Faith No More. And I kind of like, and I missed the 2016 show, so I'll go and see him this time around for sure there.
What are your thoughts on his the Avid Patton album?
I like it. I wanted to go. They were playing a bunch of local clubs. They were playing a little bar in McHenry. The only thing was it was so expensive to go and see. It was $137,
Yep.
and I'm like, do I really want? I really wanted to go, and a couple of my buddies went, and I was like, that's a lot of money to drop. After the amount of money I spent on Guns N' Roses tickets, which we won't even get into that. But I was kind of, I did want to see them, but I just couldn't justify the money that they were asking. But I like the project. Like it sounds very good. I like
Love
that
it.
kind of soulful country. Patton's got a great voice, right? Even the stuff he's done with like Lavage and
Yeah.
the jazz stuff that he does, like he's probably the most eclectic singer in the business. You know, there are very few people that can do what he can do.
It stings because I agree with you 100% on that. I think his voice is something that's magical.
Mhm.
I think it's his personality that ruins things, unfortunately.
Yeah. The thing is that they're rock stars, right? Like they can kind of do what they want to do, right? I mean, the guy left touring and lived in Italy for 15 years because he didn't want to stay in the US anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
they can do what they want, right? You can kind of, you know, pick your projects and do what you want to do. And I think with him, he's one of those kind of guys that like he went against the business, right? Because when he came on Epic Records, he didn't like the process. So he says, I'll make my own label and I'll put my own music out. And they're like, go ahead and do it. And he did it. I mean, how many people really go that
No,
route to?
none.
So he's very, he is like a rock star in every sense of the word, right? Like, he pulls a lot of punches. He's very, but he backs it up. So I think
Yeah.
that's, a unique thing with him. And as much as, I kind of, vocal range is a very hard thing to possess, right? For guys that can actually sing, can't usually do anything else. They have that tone. He is just so, I mean, his from his acapella to his growls to
Yeah.
singing to screaming in the microphone like he does with Phantomus and all the sound effects. He's unique. I mean, there aren't many like him.
It's interesting because one of my favorite artists, vocalists, is actually Maria Brink,
Hmm.
of In This Moment,
Yeah,
because she can scream with the best of them, but she can sing,
yeah,
and she can Henry Rollins spoken word it as well,
yeah,
which is to me is like a very interesting mix. Like when she and we've seen them several times. And have you seen them?
yeah. They're great. They put
Oh,
on a fantastic show.
the show she puts on, like I mean, the outfit changes. She's like the Lady Gaga of
Yeah,
metal, right?
right. Yeah, they're very good. The one thing that I do like about in this moment, and I will say this, is that there are bands that find a sound and they stick to it, right? Like Killswitch is a great example, right? They found that niche and it worked for them, and they stuck with that for all of their albums, even with the two singer changes. That music, when you hear those riffs, you're like, oh, that's Killswitch, right? The one
Mhm.
thing I love about in this moment is that they go from like metal to pop to industrial back to metal to hardcore. Like it's unique and it's refreshing, right? That you actually
Mhm.
get a whole realm of music in one package, right? And I think that like when you're a band and you find something that works for you and it works well, you stick with it. But when you're a
Mhm.
band that can do everything right, no matter what style you do, like that's unique, that's special. And
So
they in this moment found that.
yep, yeah, they did. So I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Um, what's a band that you have in your collection that people may go, really?
Well, I
You
have
have that?
probably so are you talking about like stuff that you wouldn't expect like a metalhead to listen to? Or are you talking about like more obscure things that like
I'm
I
talking about something that, like, if people were
so
looking
I
through your collection, they would stop and go, "You have Dua Lipa?"
yeah, so I don't necessarily have any of that. I do have which is kind of rare. I actually just found it the other day, but it's the original pressing of 3 6 Mafia. So I
Oh,
bought it.
okay.
I was like, how can I pass this up for $30? I'm like, I can't not see this. It's the Unbreakable album. And 3 6
Okay.
Mafia when I was in college was like they were the top of like all the rap artists. Like Eminem hadn't come out yet. That was later on. All the Southern rap was kind of later. But 3 6 Mafia was them and the Beastie Boys were blasting, at school and a party. It was those two bands were like got everything kind of like going to where it was at. You will find I am a huge fan of old rock and roll. So I have Chuck Berry, I have Richie Valens, I have the Big Bopper. I have a bunch of those old, 1940s, 1950s rock like vinyls with the collections. Dick Clark's Rock and Roll from 1957. So I have those in my collection. So those are like if you were to see all the metal I have, all everything from hardcore to black metal to industrial to if you were going through and you see Chuck Berry, you kind of be like, but I grew up, my mom listened to that kind of stuff. We had a radio station in Chicago called 104.3, and Dick Biondi was the DJ. And all he did was play everything from the 40s, 50s, and 60s was all day long. And she listened to it going to work, picking me up from school to sports practices to everything. It was 104.3. So I fell in love with that music. So, Buddy Holly, all the doo-wop stuff. And then my dad is old school Italian, so he had Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, all the crooners, Jerry Vale. So he had that kind of stuff. So I still have those in my collection. So you'll see, you'll see Emperor, 1349, Dark Throne, Dean Martin.
Okay.
So those are kind of things that would have. And again, you mentioned him earlier. I'm a huge Neil Diamond fan. I actually went to see the guy that does his like show and essence of him. I love Neil Diamond. I have three of his albums, the greatest hits. So the jazz singer, I'm a huge Neil Diamond fan too. Um, so
I
yeah,
saw
so
Neil. I saw Neil
you know,
Diamond at Nationwide years ago. It was like I
yeah,
think one of his last tours here. Yeah. So no,
yeah. So
you're not. I'm not going to judge you on that at all.
no, so that's I think I have Barry Manilow's greatest hits like that's floating around somewhere. Um I went to Catholic school, right? My entire upbringing. So the Passion Play in 8th grade, we did Jesus Christ Superstar. So that always like holds near and dear to me because it was like you understood acting in it and like doing the playwright. We're all nervous, right? We're all seventh and eighth graders, and we don't want to be in front of a stage. We don't want to, everyone kind of, some people found themselves doing that, right? Being able to be in front of people and not be scared and not, but that kind of always held a special place in my heart. And then the Phantom of the Opera, I like musicals too. So the Phantom was always like a big one for me. My uncle always played it. And so I have that in my collection. So there's, a few things that you would be like, oh, I didn't know you would have this. So there's a little bit of stuff, but it kind of all makes sense, I guess, in the end, right?
It's all music.
Yeah. So
You go through mine. I've got Belle Biv DeVoe. I've got Madonna, George Michael. I've
yeah,
got my
yeah,
mom listened to Billy Joel growing up. I have every one of his albums.
sure,
I've got Elton John. I've got Zeppelin, and then I've got Pantera, Slipknot. I've got
yeah,
Ghost. I've got Avatar. I've got my wife's got Tupac.
yeah.
It's
I mean, those are the things, right? Like when you look back, right? Like I wasn't really a big rap guy, right? But I appreciated it, right? Like Eminem
yeah.
kind of changed the game, right? Because in your formative years, right, you had all the old school rap artists, right? The Run DMCs, the Tone Locks, the stuff like that, right? That's kind of what we grew up on, right? As being basically the last of the Gen X, Gen Zers, right? That was kind of our wheelhouse. But, as you start to get into like more and more stuff, like I grew up on the 80s glam metal, right? But Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction was the first CD I ever bought. And it was like $38. It was like 37.99. And I went to buy it. I'll never forget. It was JC Penney's actually had a little record section up by their men's clothing in the back there. And they had it. And I remember I went to buy it. I had saved up money, and the guy says, "How old are you, son?" I'm like, I don't know, but I was probably like 11, I think. And then I lied, and I think I said I was 13. He goes, "I can't sell this to you." He goes, "It's NC-17." He goes, "You have to be 17 years old to buy this." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "You better go get your mom or dad to buy it because I can't sell it to you." So here I am going to my mom, being like, "Hey, can you buy me the CD?" She's like, "Why can't you buy it?" I'm like, the guy said I had to get my mom to do it, so my mom went and bought Guns N' Roses for me. That was the first CD I ever ever had.
My
And it was
first
funny.
tape.
Yeah. So, and my first tape was Slaughter, Stick It to You.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
My
was,
first tape, my first tape was Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock.
yeah. Yeah. And it was funny because my cousin Chris, he's 2 years older than me. he was obviously what he was listening to is kind of what I was listening to. And we went to Lake Geneva, and there was a little like kind of record store, tape store in there, and they had like a it was a buy one get one like half off or buy one get one free. So we had the ingenious idea. He's like, I'll buy one and I'll get you whatever you want. He bought Rad out of the cellar, and I was like, I don't know what any of this stuff was. I recognized Motley Crue, but I already had it, and I was like, and he's like, how about this? And it was Slaughter, and I was like, all right, I'll try it. It was one of my favorite albums, so like so I always give my cousin Chris kudos to the music because every time I went over to his house, he's like, "Oh, did you hear the new?" I'm like, "Nope." He's like, "All right, we're gonna listen to it." So it was Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, stuff like that. And I was like, I had no idea that stuff existed until
Hmm.
like him, And then when I got to high school, in the football locker room and stuff like that, it was Slayer, Pantera,
Yep.
a lot of the kind of heavier stuff. That was the first time I heard 6 Feet Under, Cannibal Corpse, and bands like that I didn't even know existed. I was like, what is this? And they're like, oh, this is so and so. I was like, sounds good to me. So that's how, I kind of went like into the like way heavier side of things, growing up, and that was kind of it. So but as we wrap up the conversation, I just wanted to get, we talked a lot about the process of vinyl. Where do you think it goes from here? Do you think it'll ever have that kind of decline like it did? Do you think it'll keep going up? Do you think at some point they'll come out with something better? Or like I always try to get a take on it because, there was a time where vinyl almost went extinct, where they
Mhm.
weren't really pressing anything. It was all CDs and all digital music. And now the resurgence of it, do you think it's going to keep growing? Do you think it'll eventually plateau? Do you think it'll fall off again?
So it's funny. That's a great question because I was reading an article just the other day that it has kind of plateaued. There was only, I think it was a 2 or 3% increase in the last year in vinyl sales. But the oddly enough, the sales that increased the most, and I think it was 60 something percent, was CD.
Hmm.
Um, but oddly enough, I can't remember the specific statistic of it, but hardly anyone owns a CD player. So people
Right.
are now buying CDs for collector's sake, not
Sure.
to listen to. They're buying them as a collection point. I think vinyl, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think people are learning to love it. And it's going to be a hard, I think, now format to kill,
Hmm.
because we're at the peak of technology. I don't think anything's coming in to replace lossless audio or digital audio. Like there's nothing else to replace it with, except for maybe a
Hmm.
newer format that's crisper, cleaner, but that's still going to be digital. So I
Sure.
think those of us who love music for what it is and love the tactile owning of something physical, and now you've got Sony saying we're not going to make physical games anymore. I think you're going to see a lot of these people pulling away from that. I think there's always going to be a yearning for having a physical copy of something.
Sure.
And we're now in our 40s and 50s. Well, we're going to live till we're 70, 80. That's 40 more years of us growing it, loving it, enjoying it,
Hmm.
and sharing it with our children, our grandchildren. So I don't think it's going to go away. I think it'll maintain its kind of status quo. I think the only thing that'll kill vinyl is if they stop making it.
Sure. Yeah, and one last thing, that we talked about that, and you touched on it just a couple seconds ago. When you buy something physical, right, and you kind of have it in your hands, and you get to like that lost art of like reading liner notes and reading about other bands and having bands thank you, right? We're in a digital age, right? If you want to find out a band, you just Google them and it pops right up, right? Or go to any thing. But back in the day when you didn't have that, you relied on magazines and you relied on the physical albums, right? Because the bands would say, hey, thank this other band for taking me on tour. We would like to thank these bands for helping us with our studios time. And so like those bands would mention other bands, and that's kind of how you'd make kind of a mental note of like, oh, well, I don't know this band, but they mentioned them. They must be kind of in the same vein, right? And so I
Mhm.
think, with you just said it about, having, the next generation being able to put something in their hand means something, right? It's gratifying, right? I spend Apple Music, right? It's 11.99 a month, right? And I get unlimited downloads of whatever I want, brand new, and now all these social media bands on social media are just linking right to Apple, right? Or Spotify. You just push a button, it takes you right to it. You just download their track, right? Easy as pie. but there's something unique about holding something in your hand and like reading it and seeing it and
Yeah.
looking at the pictures and looking at that. And I think that's why a lot of the imagery is coming back. I think that a lot of, people are putting, time and money in again into having artists do their artwork and creating a physical album again versus just putting something into AI and having it pump out.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
my buddies, he's making solo music now. He's actually just put out a couple of songs. He's making an EP. He's gonna have an album by the end of the year. But he said the same thing. He's like, I want to press it out. I don't know the cost involved in it. He goes, I could download something digital and send it to a record station or whatever. He goes, but I don't know what it costs to print out something. So it's just kind of unique now because it's so obscure at this
Yeah,
point.
it is, and it's one of the things when I go see bands, and like I said, we go to a lot of concerts.
Mhm.
If there are bands I've never heard of and I like them, the openers, I buy their album.
Yeah.
I remember seeing In This Moment and Funeral Portrait open for him,
Hmm.
and I had never heard of Funeral Portrait,
Yeah.
and I was literally standing in the crowd, and I'm like, well, there was one vinyl of theirs left on Amazon. Bought it immediately.
Yeah.
We went and saw Helmet. I took my youngest to see Helmet, and we got to meet them. And one of the bands that opened for them was War on Women. Bought all their albums right there.
Yeah.
Slamosa was another one. They're from where are they from? Like Sweden, Norway-ish, somewhere around there. Bought their albums. Like
Yeah.
it's different. It's just a different
Yeah.
thing.
And it's usually cool because at the smaller shows, you can have the band sign it, right? Usually they'll
Yep.
pull out a Sharpie and just have them. So I think now that's kind of my new thing. I got about 8 or 9 vinyls that I bought at shows where I'm like, I want the band to sign it. And they're like, oh, when they get off stage, we'll have them come and sign it. I'm like, awesome. And I'll wait
Yep.
for them. They'll sign it, take a picture with them and, post it. And that's kind of so it's kind of the cool thing now that a lot of bands are starting to do that where, back in the day, they just played, they got off, off the stage and they just kind of left. Now they're doing these VIP packages and stuff like that where they're actually signing stuff for you and doing meet and greets. So I think it's kind of cool that that's coming back.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it was great. It was one of the best experiences I could ever have taken my kid to,
Yeah.
because Helmet was my first concert. So
Okay.
Helmet, Rollins Band, and Primus. And
Yeah. That's
here I was able to take him, and he got to meet Paige Hamilton and the new members of the band. He bought a shirt with like a cat on it that said Helmet, and
yeah.
it turned out to be the drummer's cat named
Okay.
Banana. So like he ended up having a whole conversation with the drummer, and we met them. And I, like an idiot, didn't think I could bring anything for them to sign, but they still signed their posters for us. And
Sure.
he got to meet the band Slomo, so he got to meet the people from War on Women. They gave him a pick, they gave him a drumstick, and they signed it. Like those are to me experiences that disappeared for quite a while. But I feel like you
Right.
said they're making a comeback.
Yeah.
While some of them are over the top cost wise,
Sure.
when you go to these smaller shows, it's a lot easier to be able to do that and get that kind of
I love the
experience.
smaller venues. I just saw Upon a Burning Body Friday night, and like they're going to be on Incarceration. They pick up, I think, somewhere in one of the legs of the tour, but we got to see them for $30, right?
Yeah.
Incarceration is probably $250 for 2 or 3 days. So that was really cool that they kind of pulled off and they went on. And even the opening band said the same thing. They're like, it's right up the road. Thank you for coming out seeing us. But they're hopping on the leg now, so they're all on it. But it was just kind of cool to see where I love the local shows.
Yeah.
I'll say that forever. I'd rather go see a $30 show and a band than I mean I don't mind paying up. Like I had to pay up to see Guns N' Roses. Obviously they're not going to play any small venues, and they were kind of my one band that I've always wanted to see. And then COVID hit, and I didn't get a chance to see them. So I said whatever it takes, I'm going to go see Guns N' Roses. It's probably the same thing now with Faith No More. Whatever it's going to take for me to go see them, I'll have to pay up to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're at Sonic Temple, you're always more than welcome to come
Yeah,
here and stay at our place.
perfect. I
So,
might take you up on that. So as we wrap up the episode and we got everything kind of going through, give us your final take on the whole experience for you and I know we talked a lot about it, but like as you kind of can maybe put just a period at the end of the statement.
well, I mean, I'm glad it came back. I'm glad it is. For me, the owning of his physical media is important as we're moving more and more in the digital age.
Mhm.
Having that is part of history.
Sure.
And the fact that I'm able to share that with my wife and my son, um, and with a community of people. of record store owners and people who go into the record stores, that is something that we have lost as a society over time. We've moved away from being face to
Right.
face, of
Sure.
being part of something, and I think vinyl offers that wherever you live. Because, like I
Sure.
said, we've hit record stores in many cities, and we can always find one that has that. And I think that's one of the things that makes vinyl unique and special.
Sure. I couldn't agree more. Well, with that being said, we'll wrap up this podcast. Thank you all for being a part of the One Fun Guy podcast family. This video will be up on YouTube in a little bit. I'm just going to do a quick edit. Jim, thanks again for being a guest on it. I love the experience of
Yes.
talking music with you. I'm sure we'll do many more. We could talk about concerts and other stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll we'll we'll,
Well,
we'll make this a segment maybe.
whenever you want, I am always available, and I will be more than happy to sit here and talk music or anything you want.
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, thank you all for being a part of this. Enjoy your weekend, and Jim, we'll see you soon. All right.
All right, thanks, Marco.